We go in to do our stuff, we do our thing, and it's quiet. We do it in a very small area. And people look at that and say, oh, that's the dentist. But the dentist it's one of the top fears in the country that people have is going to the dentist. You could have taken care of business with that extra person. You could have given one more hug. You could have looked at that business plan a little bit better instead of just getting through it. If you're thinking of them, just let them know. There's so many people in there that, they don't get any correspondence. And they've been in there for years. And yes, we committed a crime, but that doesn't mean we're always criminal.
Yeah. Episode 93, Stay Classy podcast. Let's get it. We have Dr. Nate Schott in the house, and Dr. Nate is... Well, he has a lot to offer in his story, but he is a dental consultant. He's a coach. He's been involved in all sorts of things, from dentistry himself to, I believe, managing diamond mines in Africa. Is that right?
Well, owning those.
Oh, you're owning
really
the diamond mines in Africa. Yeah, okay, even better. Well, we'll get into that too. But you had 33 dental offices running for you by the age 30. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then you've generated over $50 million in profit for various dentists that you've consulted and advised for.
Yeah.
Which is a tremendous accomplishment. And we'll get into some of those accomplishments and the entrepreneurship stuff, but let's start at the top with sort of the elephant in the room, which is a few years ago, you were released from federal minimum security prison.
Yes.
After serving, was it a 10-month sentence? And you were released on good behavior during COVID. And I just want to start there because I know that's an important part of your story, and I know that it's important because it shapes a lot of the accountability stuff that you talk about now in your business practices, and it shapes a lot of the sort of the outlook on life that you have. So let's start there. So with prison, obviously, feel free to explain like what led up to that, but I'm just curious how. We'll just start there. Like, what led up to that? Like, why did you end up in prison for 10 months?
Man, thank you. First of all, thanks for having me on the podcast, and I really appreciate it. And that's usually one of the biggest questions I get, and I really, as I started back into this after I've been out from prison, is just wanting to be really transparent. So please ask me anything, as I know you will. And but what led me up to that was really, I was running dental offices. I had really stopped seeing patients on a day-to-day basis in 2013. I had 4 dental offices at the time that I had built back. I had, as you said, by the time I was 30, I had 33 dental offices across the country.
Yeah, you're killing it.
And killing it, or it was killing me. I don't know which one it was, but both. And I really got a great education in that. But what really happened was, I had gone through life, and so many things were happening. I was always entrepreneurial, looking for different ways that I could help people, whether it was patients, whether it was team members or staff, or business partners. And my mind just doesn't stop going. It thinks about, what are ways that you can fix things that might be broken. And it wasn't just teeth, so to speak. So I enjoyed the practice of dentistry, and I did a lot of it, and I really had a good time doing it. But as I developed, I had come up with a way that I maybe could see a different way to practice. And the 4 practices we had, we ended up doing it where we ended up being open 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Because what I did was I really learned about how to really acquire patients.
Yeah.
But the value, and in most businesses, most business people know this, it's not in the new client that necessarily where the big value is. It's the return business from the existing client. Is the most value I have found. Yeah. And I think most business people will say that. And I do know we need new clients, because that's where we want to repeat business. We want loyalty. Yeah. We want things to come out of that. And with that said, I started really looking at that. I had a very dear friend of mine in the Bay Area here in California, who I started working with years ago in marketing, that really taught me about marketing, and did a phenomenal job. His name's John Christensen with ChrisAd. And, I do some lecturing for them and even consult back to them. But I'll tell you, what I learned was, if you want to grow, you've got to open the flow, but you've got to deal with capacity.
Sure.
And most people, and I know you asked me a question about prison, and we'll get to that, but I really want, you said, how did I get there? Well, you start looking at the capacity. If you market, you've got to have the capacity to market. It doesn't matter how much money you spend. If you don't have the ability to intake all of those people that you want to impact, you're dead.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. So as I learned that from him, and then the stuff that I learned as I implemented it, we just started growing at such a rapid pace.
Yeah.
and it was massive.
Okay.
And in answer to your question, grew those businesses and, had them on the market to sell. And then little did I know, I got a letter in the mail from the OIG, Office of Inspector General from the state of Tennessee, and that's where I was, and saying, hey, we want to look into your books. I had one practice that took federal health insurance for the kids, Medicaid. And as I said, I had stopped practicing in 2013. I got that letter, I think, in 2016, 2017-ish. And
did you instantly know that was trouble, or did it not fully hit you?
Because I'd had other businesses, but also other practices, and I'd been on the State Board of Dentistry back when around 1999, 98, and I graduated from dental school in 91. But I knew where it was going, so I didn't think anything of it.
Okay.
I thought, I had 18 associates working for me.
Yeah.
So as you have an operation that's going, we're open 7 days a week. I thought, you know what, we just need to call them, turn whatever over they need. I didn't think anything of it. And little did I know that was where the dominoes started to fall a little bit.
Okay.
And I started thinking, wait a minute, something's up here. It didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And, of course, I hired an attorney, and then we looked into it. And, if you're in an investigation, not just state, but finding out later it was from the feds, they don't tell you anything. And rightly so. I mean, I understand that, but you'd think there would be more communication, but there wasn't. But as things went on, it was start and stop, and you thought, wait, something's happening, something's not happening. And as that went on, I started finding out, wait a minute, we had some breaks in the system that I wasn't paying attention to.
Yeah.
And when I look at that, that was how I ended up in prison, by not paying attention to dotting the I's and crossing the T's in my business. Now, I don't want to say, people will come back to me and say, oh, you just made a mistake. I didn't make a mistake. I made a choice. The choice was, at the time, I didn't pay attention to the little things. And the little things add up to the big things. And I wasn't managing my business.
Yeah.
I wasn't running it the way I needed to. The other thing,
you were kind of had the big picture outlook, but the little things kind of fell through the cracks.
Which is, I think, the big thing that, and I think most people, if you're watching this, you can relate to this.
Yeah.
You can too.
Yeah.
We start a business and we go into it and we think, oh, everything will take care of itself. Or I'll get to that.
Yeah.
Or I'm not worried about it. Or, you know what, I addressed that problem, but it's kind of like I addressed it, but as my lawyer said, when I said, I'm really struggling with this. They said, look, man, you turned a blind eye. And you turn a blind eye to something little that's going on, something little becomes bigger. Now, I knew what the law was. I signed a contract.
Yeah.
I signed it saying I was going to do the work. I didn't not only do the work, my associates were supposed to do the work. They also found my associates weren't doing the work, and we were billing for that.
Sure.
Now, there are a lot of things that I signed. I had a plea agreement that came from that. And that investigation went on for about 3 years.
Yeah.
So,
but you did plead guilty.
Oh, yeah, I pled guilty.
Everything kind of came clear. You pled guilty and took accountability for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would never, that's the one thing I don't want anybody to take away from this, is that I am not pleading, I'm not sitting here skirting any responsibility. I own what I did. I don't like it.
Yeah.
It made me look, when I went to prison, it made me look down deep inside and see, where were some character defects? Where were things that in my personality that it's easy to run over and run past? I see that a lot of times in coaching entrepreneurs. I don't just coach dentists. I coach CEOs. I coach startups. I do stuff with people.
Yeah.
And the company that I have, it deals with, core competencies. We might get into that later.
Sure,
but
sure.
The thing that I see is most of us, we run past it because we are thinking so big picture.
Yeah.
And we've got to get to the next thing. And, I can tell you, I'm not a good manager. I don't manage well.
Okay.
I am big picture. I think I can lead well. I think I can persuade. I think I can do those things. But when I get into management, I get very frustrated. But it's just like, okay, well, so-and-so will take care of that because that's what they do. But they might not know how to do it.
Sure.
I might not have provided the resources to have them do it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those things that I didn't look at. And as I look back, that's what led me to prison, were the choices that I made, but being really unintentionally intentional, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Or or intentionally, unintentional. I struggle with that. But it wasn't that I set out to just scheme something. I know there's some things that I signed that say I did that, and I don't run away from that. However, it's just if you're not careful, there was a book out years ago that said, "Don't sweat the small stuff," and that's years and years ago. And I'm going to tell you, sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
It's in the details. But, in entrepreneurs, we think, oh, I'll just get the big picture going and everything else will take care of itself. It doesn't take care of itself.
You got to take responsibility for it.
And you got to take accountability, responsibility. So that was what got me there. But it was a charge on one charge that I pled guilty to conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud.
Okay.
And that was what happened.
Enjoying this episode? Subscribe for more content on finding your own path to success. Every subscriber makes a huge difference to the pod, and we're grateful for everyone. And don't forget to throw us a classy like and comment too to let YouTube know that you're a fan of our stuff. Now back to your regularly scheduled podcasting.
I want to ask you, like when prosecutors, they accuse you in court of these fraudulent billing practices, they're, and then the sentence hits you. The original sentence, I believe, was 22 months in prison, which ended up getting reduced.
Actually, 33 months.
33 months. So then when you hear that sentence passed down, I can only imagine that had to be the darkest day of your life. Talk us through what you were feeling at that moment.
Yeah, it really was tough. But actually, it was the most freeing day because you could finally put your head around what was going to have to happen and that I one day was going to be out. I mean, look, it wasn't a death sentence.
No.
It felt like it.
Yeah.
I didn't have cancer. I've since lost some friends to cancer since I've been out. And
sorry to hear that.
I didn't have, you don't, and we all go through those losses, but it was something I knew I had to go through, and I broke the law. And, I'm not here to glamorize it or to say anything with it. But I think the darkest day was really started, as my wife and I talked about, it's at different stages. The first part of it, investigation, when we were getting investigated by the federal government, it's just not, oh, here it is, and you're wanting
it's uncertainty.
To go. Yeah, it's complete uncertainty.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
They've got to do their due diligence. There's other things they're checking. They're looking at stuff. They interview people. And then they start interviewing friends, family, neighbors, sitting with cars parked outside of your house. I'm a dentist. I was a dentist.
Yeah. You're like, oh,
again, right. Yeah. And it's not good. But the thing was that as you go through it, each part had its own stress.
Sure.
And it was 3 years of stress. And then the prison part actually is, I remember when the sentence came down, I was just grateful because the Department of Justice wanted 51 months. I really had great lawyers. I had a great, there are things as, prison consultants. I had a great prison consultant out there, and they did phenomenal white-collar advice if people are going through it, and Justin Paperny.
Yeah.
Those guys are phenomenal. My lawyers were Bassberry and Sims and David Rabin. If you need a great criminal lawyer, not that you do, but I'm just telling you, you've got to have that. And I had people that really, really stood around me, but each way had its own thing going. But I sat up there, and it was almost like a relief when I heard 33 months because they wanted 51 months. And 33, and then I was able to do what they call programming in prison, and I could get some time off for that.
Yeah.
And then they give you good time. They don't have parole in federal prison. So, but I did get out after 10 months, and then I went to home confinement, and the rest is I'm here.
So I want to ask, I don't want to dwell on negativity too much.
Yeah.
And I do want to talk about your entrepreneurship. But before I do that, I do want to ask because people listening to this are probably curious, when we think of prison, people who've never been there, we often think of, the violence, the sexual assault, the solitary confinement, all the terrible things that we associate with prison, which I believe there's a reality that matches that. But at the same time, what was your own mentality and expectation going in into how that time would be, and how did your time in prison actually match up to that expectation?
Yeah, thank you. You don't know. You wonder all of those things. I went to a federal prison camp. Then people will say, "Oh, you went to a country club," and I just said, "That's no country club that I ever know of. I've never been to a country club like that." I mean, your freedom is gone. prison is for punishment. It's not for rehabilitation, even though we think
At least in our society, yeah.
In our society, and that's the way it is. And there's a lot of reform that needs to be done around all of it. And we don't have the time to talk about that. But yeah, I had a lot of fear because you don't know. I mean, 1 minute I'm going and my wife and son are dropping me off, and I had a Chick-fil-A sandwich, and I self-reported. And the next minute I get in and I report there, and one of the corrections officers picks me up, and I said, "How are you?" And he looks over, and I'm not speaking to you. I didn't talk to you. You basically don't talk to me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't whether that was a joke or not, which I didn't take it that way. I was like, wow, your world changed, and then everything else changed within it. But it is about punishment. I don't want to go back. It punished me enough. I get it, and I think there is reform that way with most people. But again, our system is created to have recidivism, not to go back. That's another topic. Yeah. But was I afraid of it? Yeah. Did violence happen in prison camps? Absolutely. Were there sexual things going on? I didn't see it, but I'm sure there was. Yeah. But was I afraid of all that? Sure, going in, everyone is. Yeah. Because you don't know what you're going to.
Yeah.
And people in prison camps are brought down. I mean, they work themselves down from, different types of prisons, mediums, lows, to that stuff as they're going out. That's the process.
Yeah. And you were locked up with like other sort of minimum level security
a lot
kind of prisoners?
Mostly drug charges, white collar. Okay. That's who we're supposed to be. Okay. But again, you don't know what else they did.
But it's still prison.
Yeah, it's prison.
It's still prison, yeah. Craving authentic Italian flavor? Look no further than Primo Pizza and Pasta. We cater any occasion, whether it's a family gathering, a corporate event, or just a night in with friends. Primo has you covered, with the freshest pizza, pasta, and salads in town. And don't forget the homemade meatballs, garlic bread, and fresh baked bread. Perfect for any occasion. And hey, football and baseball fans, this season with the NFL kicking off and October baseball heating up, score big with our new limited time special.
Get 1 dozen wings, a 2-liter soda, and a 16-inch pizza with 1 topping. All for just $39.99.
That's right, a full meal for the whole team at an unbeatable price. So visit us at 7110 Avenida Encinitas, Suite 103 in Carlsbad, or check us out online at primopizzapasta.com. That's primopizzapasta.com. Bring the taste of Italy to your next event. Primo Pizza and Pasta, where every bite is a touchdown. There's no sugarcoating that. So, in your time there so obviously it sounds like the impression I get is that you took accountability for the business errors that led to your conviction, and you were, prepared, you steeled yourself for this sentence. But during your time there, were there any kind of moments or any gradual thought processes that really changed your outlook on life? Like describe, like maybe it was a day in prison or a memory in particular, or maybe it was a series of gradual moments that built up to you having like changing your perspective on life coming out.
Yeah. I'll tell you, the whole thing is I really had a difficult time getting adjusted because you go into prison and shame really grips you a lot of times. And it did for me anyway. It doesn't everybody necessarily, but you really want to find a routine.
Yeah.
And the quicker you can get to a routine, the better it's going to be. Now, I was very fortunate. I had a lot of visits on the weekend. My wife could come. My mom, my sister, other family members, even friends could come. But one thing that struck me is you're always looking at time. Mm. You are serving time.
Yeah.
And there's 2 instances I'll give you. A story was, I remember when I first got there, you would see guys either, kind of laying in the bed, crawled up in more like a fetal position with a sheet over their head when we weren't working, because we were at a camp where we worked. Yeah. And you had jobs, and you're up every morning, and you're working through things and doing all the stuff, and then you do everything. But I remember looking at that. Other guys would work out all the time. Okay. And when I say all the time, between work, of course, other guys are reading. Other people are writing stuff for what they do. I mean, all kinds of things. But I'll never forget one guy said, look, you don't want to come in here looking at how another person is serving their time. You do your time. Let them do their time. And it wasn't like I was ever trying to, go say, hey, you shouldn't do this. But that stuck with me because prison is a microcosm of what's going on here. Mm. The same thing that goes on in prison, the same thing here.
Yeah.
People, whatever you wanted in prison, unfortunately, you could get it in prison. The same thing you get out here. You wanted it in there, you could get it. And I'm not saying that it happened all the time, but there's still criminal activity going on in prison, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's not always the prisoners that are doing that. But that's where a lot of it comes from. But you look at that, and it's a microcosm. But we're looking at how do we serve time, and that was something that took me back to thinking, each day we're given as a gift.
Yeah.
And in prison, you're wanting to kill time.
Okay.
And that's what people would say, or I'm doing my time, or I'm serving time, or how are you going to get through it?
Yeah.
And guys are just trying to get to the end of it. Well, you get to the end of it, but what did you really learn? You killed it. You slept yourself through it. You ate through it. You made deals through it. You gambled through it. They did a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Worked through it, worked out, whatever you did. But you really want to prepare for the best possible outcome. And what could I learn in it? And I think you said a minute ago, which I liked, about the business stuff, but it really is the personal stuff that got me there. And that's what you're asking about. What did I learn personally was, how do I deal with time that we're all given the same 24 hours? Okay. And the other thing that I dealt with was, I remember looking out the window in my cell, and we had somewhat open cells. I mean, we were on an Air Force base. I was in Montgomery, Alabama, and the prison's in the back there. But it was open, and you have time where you're going through, and I was writing, and I'd always look out that cell window when I was inside, and you couldn't do it. I remember one of my guys that were in the cell a couple down became a real good friend of mine, and he'd look at me and say, hey, Schott, what are you doing looking out that window? There's nothing going on out there. You can't do anything about what's going on out there. You got to be in here. Your family's going to be okay. And even if they're not, you can't do anything about it. You got to trust God to let go of those things and know He's going to do something about that and take care of that. And He's going to take care of you, and you're in here. And focus on what's going on in here, because that's all you can deal with. And that was the second big lesson that I learned, was how was I going to do time? But the more I thought, because I was always trying to think, I miss my family, I think about it, and you can ruminate on those things. And when I start ruminating, what happens, I'm either thinking about the past, which leads me to depression.
Sure.
But if I think about the future, what does it lead me to? Anxiety.
Yeah.
So I got to be in today, because all I have is today. I mean, what does the Bible say, man? Nobody knows about tomorrow. Yeah. He gives me today and right now.
What a day may bring, yeah.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And when I looked at that, he was so right. And we came from such different backgrounds. And I'll never forget, that was wisdom to me. And I was like, it didn't mean I can't think about my family, but if I can focus on what's happening here right now and be in this moment, that's where I get the gift that God can give me, even in prison.
Wow. Did that bring you a lot of peace?
Oh my gosh. It brought me a lot of peace, and it brought me a lot of comfort, but it also convicted me of my life, of what I didn't do, because I had lived always worrying about everybody else, perfectionism, taking care of the oldest, the hero child, all that stuff. And that's what got me in trouble, because I didn't take care of me first. And if I took care of me and I got me, then I could give me.
Yeah, because you can't pour from an empty cup.
And that's right. Yeah. And I was always pouring from an empty cup. And look, I had as a Christian, and I broke the law as a Christian. I mean, and I really feel like I knew who God was and knew the Lord. And yet, when I go back to it, I wasn't living fully, and I wasn't loving deeply, and I definitely wasn't leading well. And those are the things that I really got out of that. I mean, there are a lot more things we could talk about, but you ask about those things. Yeah. But individually, I go back to those things, and that's what I take. And that's what I do outside, and that's what I see happen each day when I'm dealing with people. They're either in tomorrow, they're not in the moment, they can't finish their job. I don't care if you're an administrative assistant all the way to a CEO. Yeah. You're always thinking about something else instead of being in now.
Okay. Yeah.
And now is where it's happening.
Yeah, literally right now, today.
Right, prepare. Yeah. It's like you exercise, you do stuff. Yeah. If you don't take care of business, and that's what they always say, got to go take care of business. The guys would go exercise, and I'll be, all right, man. And especially you're older, I see older guys out there, and they're doing stuff. They're, hey, man, you're getting that money, aren't you? And that's how they'd say, go get that money. But the point about that was you taking care of business. Yeah. And you have to. And if you don't, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to forget things. And everybody wants to blame it on somebody else. And blame is a problem in society. It was a problem with me. It was a problem with everybody else. And entitlement. Oh, I did a little bit. No,
Yeah.
you didn't. You didn't do enough as you could do. You could have done one more rep in the gym. You could have taken care of business with that extra person. You could have given one more hug. You could have looked at that business plan a little bit better instead of just getting through it.
And the thing is what you're saying is like, we always like kind of put those things off and say, oh, well, we have more time. Like, I'll do it later. But we don't know if we have more time. We don't know if you have tomorrow. Like, so it's not like, oh, do the rep another day. It's like, do it today. Like, do the extra job today. It's like, I think Kobe Bryant was a big practitioner of that philosophy about, like everybody talks about time. I'm paraphrasing him. He's like, everybody talks about time. He's like, you don't have time. And that doesn't mean that you rush through like all of the things in life that you do and, don't pay attention. But at the same time, it's like, these people who plan and think of like, oh, well, they're worrying about like 10 years in the future. And it's like, hey, like you have this like right here.
That's exactly
what's been given to you.
Man, that is so true. Like you said, Kobe said, and so many great business people and business leaders understand that time is what we really have. And we have the same hours in a day. Everybody does.
Yeah.
I mean, how did Kobe become Kobe? How does LeBron become LeBron? How does all these great athletes or business people look at Elon Musk? I mean, he says, you don't really want to be me. I mean, his heart hurts. There's a cost.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. There's always a cost. If it's a cost to follow Christ, he does say, come to me. He didn't say, I'm going to come and make your life great. He's going to bring enmity to people, to each other.
Sure.
Because there's a cost to following him. Yeah. There's a cost to loving other people. You're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
There's always a cost, but
that doesn't mean you don't do it.
That's exactly right. And it also doesn't mean there's not reconciliation, that you can come back to that and we can make amends and we can even be better in relationship with friendships, with our spouses, with our, other relationships, business relationships. And to grow a business, I mean, we've got to be fully engaged. It reminded me of this. I remember in prison, you go and you get in a routine. Well, the routine is usually people say, oh, you got more disciplined. I'm like, I don't think I got more discipline. I just changed my habits.
Okay.
I mean, people have self-discipline. I can eat that extra dessert.
Sure.
I can sleep in a little bit longer. I have self-discipline. I just need to change my habit.
Yeah.
If I change my habit, I get up earlier. My habit is to push the plate away after maybe 3. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Do that extra rep. People are all, they're not disciplined. Yeah, they're disciplined.
Sure.
They're just disciplined to do it this way, and you're disciplined to do it that way, and I'm disciplined to do it that way. And if we really want to change, we got to change our habit.
Yeah.
So that's the stuff that I go to see it.
I want to ask you now, it sounds like your family and those close to you stood behind you even through the worst of this, but what work did you have to put in when you got released to sort of win back the trust of others, both professionally and personally? I'm sure there are a lot of people that didn't see it your way. So, maybe on a positive note, like have any people started to come around now and see, what you've done with your life since your release and kind of change their perspective on you?
Yeah. It was hard.
Yeah.
Coming out of prison is really tough, and it's tough to be in it. And, I always tell people this, look, if you've got somebody in there, reach out with a letter. I mean, it's tough. You can't call them. They've got to call you. But if you're thinking of them, just let them know. There's so many people in there that, they don't get any correspondence. And they've been in there for years. And yes, we committed a crime. But that doesn't mean we're always criminal.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that, we're not remorseful, and prison is supposed to be about, looking inside and taking accountability. And that's the bad thing. I mean, you still see it, and I don't complain about it, but I don't think it's just, because a prisoner goes in, we serve our sentence, but, I come out, you can't vote, you can't exercise your Second Amendment rights, even though I didn't have a gun charge.
Yeah.
There's things that I can't do, but yet after you go through it, most people that are felons, they can't get a job. They're having to go work for themselves. And a lot of times, man, they can be some of the best workers. Sure, I lost the ability, I think, and you asked me about coming out. That was one of the hardest things. That for my wife, especially my kids and people around me, I said, look, it's okay if you don't trust me. I lost the ability for you to trust me, or at least to check in on it, when I went to prison and I broke the law and I broke your trust. And so many times I relate that back to little things that we might do, each one of us, and we want to make an amends, but that doesn't mean that there's not time that needs to go, that person can't say, hey, are you doing that again? I mean, I need guardrails.
Yeah.
I need my personal style is, I think, big. I move it out there, but now I put people around me that will talk to me, and I want people to say, "Hey,"
You want people to compliment your weaknesses.
and also to confront it.
Yeah.
Because, and I do that with my wife. Now, I'm not saying my wife doesn't trust me. My wife does trust me, but I look back at it as sometimes I have to be careful because, like, oh, you don't trust me, and I get demanding and entitled, and I've already served my sentence. Well, wait a minute. It's like, if I go in and I've been an alcoholic for years, or I've been whatever, and I've been detrimental to my family, but I change 1 or 2 days, I think, well, now you ought to trust what I'm doing. It doesn't work that way.
No.
And they have a right to ask you.
Sure.
But we've got to be open to that and own what we do. But it was tough coming back because you're so used to routine.
Yeah.
You've changed habits. You're looking over you're still basically, when you come home, you are still under the authority and the responsibility of the Bureau of Prisons,
Yeah.
So, and it moves to a different division, but you're still being checked out and checked on, and I pay restitution right now.
Okay.
And I'm still, the DOJ still checks my financials out. They have a right to. I pay each month. And that's important, but that reminds me of the things that I did. It reminds me of what happened, and those things remind me of where I came from. And that was the other thing, is if I can stay humble, then I can get to my gratitude. Because people ask me each day, how's your day? And I'm like, man, I'm having a great day. I'm not in prison. But at the same time, it's like, whoa, I'm not in prison. I say a prayer for those that are, and help people that might prepare them to go in a little bit. That is my giving back, because it reminds me of what I went through. But those are the things that it was tough, and it's been tough starting businesses back. And you ask about people that how they see me. A lot of people left that I thought were my friends. They didn't even come to ask me. No. That hurts.
Yeah,
and yet they didn't have to. And then I'm sitting there thinking, wait a minute, that's on me. That's not on them. I mean, what did I do in the relationship? Was I real? Did I not know? Did I do it? What did I portray? So I get that. And then other people have come back that have left. And, since I've been doing the podcast and putting my story out on Instagram, YouTube, and, all the social media, it's been interesting, more or less, but I like it because people, hey, good job, hey, thank you, or you're taking ownership, or just seeing that. So it does, but it hurt. I mean, and it hurt my family.
Sure.
And it's a tough thing. But the thing I get the most frustrated with, and I think a lot of people will say, is if I did something, hold me accountable to. But I see the stuff that my family went through with the press, which I think was abhorrent, and other stuff. It's just they didn't do that.
Yeah, they didn't.
Hey there, classy viewers. Thanks for listening to our podcast. We're dedicated to providing you with quality content that inspires and brightens your day. But keeping it classy can be expensive. If you enjoy our content, we're asking for your support for the podcast using the donation link in the description below. Donations mean the world to us, and even as little as $5 can make a huge difference in helping us make this podcast a reality. Plus, donors are added to our shortlist to be the first to receive exclusive offers on merch, extra content, and even chances to appear on the pod. Anything you can give would truly be appreciated. Now get back to enjoying the rest of the podcast, and as always, stay classy.
Yeah, they didn't deserve to get dragged into that.
No.
So I want to ask you, let's go back in time a bit. So long before you go to prison, you achieve enormous initial success in the dental industry in your own practice, and then you expanded to, again, you had over 30 practices by the time you were 30. How did you achieve such enormous initial success in the dental industry? And sort of the caveat to this question is, earlier when I made a comment about that, you said, and I said you were killing it, I could tell you kind of grimaced, and you said it was also killing me. Yeah. So kind of work that into your answer, like in terms of you achieved this initial success, but what was the cost to that people didn't see?
Oh man, I lost myself. I lose me. Because I always, what I tell people, if I come down to it, and I thank you for bringing this out. Yeah, I broke the law and how I broke it, but behind it was the disease of more. And I see that in entrepreneurs all the time. I see we build something and I remember getting out of dental school, and even if I just had this much, I've seen it with entrepreneurs, man, if I could just get to selling this many units, or I could just sell to, do this, or we had our revenue at this level, man, I'd be content. And you coach them, and we'll break things down into 90-day stuff and talk about it and hold them accountable. And you see, and you're like, hey, remember we wrote this down. you got there. Are you any happier? Oh man, we could do more. I said, there it is. I said, that's the issue. I'm not telling you don't do more, but we didn't look back at saying, wait a minute, look at where I went. We didn't celebrate where I got to.
Yeah.
We didn't celebrate.
You gotta acknowledge that. Yeah.
Where not just I got to, but I got there because of other people. I got there because of the people around me. I got there because of my team, employees. I got there because of my family. No man is an island. I mean, it's a great poem, but you look at it, and if you look at it, we don't do anything by ourselves. I mean, this is all about relationship.
Yeah.
Business is about relationship. Yeah, we've got to conceive something and put it out there, but just because you conceive it, to get it done, you've got to be able to have some with people. Even if it's a robot, somebody built the robot. You got to be able to go to them to deal with those things. And if we're not connected to each other, that's where we lose it. And so many times I did that. I started here and I just got going with more. And then, as people would say, I got the tiger by the tail. And then you can't slow down because I'm on a plane going here. I'm doing that. I'm dealing with my executive team, all the people that are managing things, and it runs you ragged. And before you know it, you've left your family, you've left your friends. People will say, who are your friends? Well, I can tell you right now, I've already picked my pallbearers. I know who they are.
Wow.
That's the people, those are the guys I go to. I got a Friday morning group that I'll miss for the second week out here, but I've been out here and they get that. But I check in with those guys.
Yeah.
And those are the guys that will be carrying my casket. But those are also the guys when I need to blow off steam or I've got some stuff going on, my wife may call and say, hey, can you talk to Nate about this? Because he doesn't seem to be listening. And I need people calling me out on stuff.
Sure. And so, yeah, I mean, it seems like, isn't that kind of a almost inevitable condition of a lot of people that reach that level of success is, you achieve these accomplishments that no one thought was possible, but at the same time, the cost of that is sort of this like loss of satisfaction in the accomplishment itself, where it's like, you reach one mountaintop and there's another one a little bit higher, and you're not enjoying it. You're not, you're again on the surface, like blowing everybody out of the water, but you're not able to enjoy it because of that same drive that led you to that success to begin with. Doesn't allow you to be satisfied.
Yeah.
So that's sort of this vicious cycle. It seems like a lot of entrepreneurs suffer from. I mean, look, I don't want to judge. Like, I don't know a lot of the the famous entrepreneurs personally. Obviously, we know guys like Musk and Steve Jobs and Bill Gates
that we read about.
They look extremely successful. Although, again, I don't know any of these guys personally, of course. But it's like you look at their personal lives, and there's a lot of things there with broken relationships, broken marriages, broken friendships, people who hated them as bosses, and you think like, maybe this isn't all it's chalked up to be. And so what I'm hearing from you is that like sort of the cost of dissatisfaction underneath that is like this other cost too. So it's like, the family life suffers, and then like you personally, you're not even feeling satisfied in the accomplishment. So what do you feel like is the way for someone to achieve those kind of accomplishments, the kind of success that you did, while not letting it burn you out, not letting it destroy your ability to take joy and celebrate the good things in life, and maintaining that family life and accountability? Like, what's the answer there?
I'll give it to you. It's a friend of mine that's, to me, a world-class therapist that in that world, he wrote a great book called Voice of the Heart. His name's Chip Dodd. But I'll tell you what it was. It's feel your feelings, tell the truth, give it to God. Because usually what I'm running away from is what's happening in my heart. It's not my mind. People will say, if you can think through it, where do I go first? Do I think first or do I feel first? I usually feel first, then it goes to my head, because when I feel, ooh, that's hot.
Yeah.
And I have a feel, or I feel, ooh, I'm scared. And then I have to think, wait a minute, there's nothing under the bed. But there could be something under the bed, and I might be afraid of the dark because something in my childhood may have happened really bad in the dark. And I'm an adult, and I go up, and then people say, well, why can't you go in a dark room? Well, it's okay. I don't care how well you think it. We've lived in a society that thinks so much. And the church, I think, is off on this too, because it'll talk about, what is it in Jeremiah? The heart is desperately wicked. Yeah. No, man, but that's, if you look at all the things about heart, where do we ask Jesus to come into? Our heart. He comes in because why? Yes. That's where it's happening. That's where relationships happen. So you tell me to outthink it. We've got obesity. We're the most obese nation in the world.
Yep.
We know more information about how to do anything because we have phones, we have information.
It's not translated into action.
It never does.
Yeah.
But what translates into action? When I get broken. What gets broken? It's not my mind. It's my heart. My heart got broken. Something had to change in my feelings. And if I don't feel those and get right with those, I can't do it here. Now, I'm not saying don't think it. I'm not saying don't control those.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't discipline our mind. I'm not saying at all don't do that, because that can be a dark place too. But people look at that, and it's the furthest 18 inches from here to here, so to speak. But and I get it from a physiological level, our mind and the parts of our mind, but where we can go and where that really is. But for illustrative purposes, 18 inches to get from here to here, that's the furthest distance you'll ever go. And I don't think we connect the two. So I think when you see those things, that's what I'm running from, to be more. What am I trying to prove? What did I ever have to prove? I didn't have to ever prove my mother's love, but I thought I did. I didn't have to with my dad's love. I thought I had to prove God's love. I didn't have to prove that either. But I didn't ever accept it. And when I finally accepted it, things started changing.
Yeah.
I can know it in my mind.
Intellectually, yeah.
But why did I keep going?
Yeah.
Where's addiction come from?
Yeah.
Oh, he has a problem. We all have a problem. That's why we need Jesus. I mean, that's what I believe.
Yeah, no.
And that's where I go. And so when you say that, that gets on a spiritual level.
Sure.
But I also think it gets on a very practical level of, we get on a ladder, as Chip would say, and we're going up. But the ladder, you never get to the top.
Yeah.
But what do you have to do to get to the top? You got somebody above you. You've got to pull them down to get over them. So you start walking over. Get off the ladder, I tell them, and get on the ground. And then you have horizontal. I can then look at you eye to eye, and I can be with you, and I can connect with you. And then what can you do with me? I can be in need. And when I'm in need and I can say, hey, Steve, I need something, you might can say, yes, I can help you. Or if you're telling the truth, Nate, I can't help you with that. But so-and-so over here I know can. Oh, wait a minute. What just happened?
Craving authentic Italian flavor? Look no further than Primo Pizza and Pasta. We cater any occasion, whether it's a family gathering, a corporate event, or just a night in with friends. Primo has you covered, with the freshest pizza, pasta, and salads in town. And don't forget the homemade meatballs, garlic bread, and fresh baked bread. Perfect for any occasion. And hey, football and baseball fans, this season with the NFL kicking off and October baseball heating up, score big with our new limited time special.
Get 1 dozen wings, a 2-liter soda, and a 16-inch pizza with one topping, all for just $39.99.
That's right, a full meal for the whole team at an unbeatable price. So visit us at 7110 Avenida Encinitas, Suite 103 in Carlsbad, or check us out online at primopizzapasta.com. That's primopizzapasta.com. Bring the taste of Italy to your next event. Primo Pizza and Pasta, where every bite is a touchdown.
I love that. I love that horizontal perspective. And I feel like that plays into your entrepreneurship and your coaching and
Absolutely.
your mission now, because you sort of have this like win-win approach to business now that you sort of bring into your coaching, into your consulting, that I want to talk about. Like you have a free community for dentists now, right?
Yep.
Tell us like how that works. Tell us like about how you take this like horizontal perspective to life of like, it's not about climbing over the ladder. It's not, this vicious competition or rat race, but it's actually about helping each other towards the success on
Yes.
that horizontal level. Like, tell us how that plays into what you do now with dentists.
Well, and the thing I do with dentists is really go in and look at what is happening with them, because so many times dentistry, unlike a lot of other parts of medicine, we're by ourselves.
Yeah.
And we created it that way. I mean, I say we're kind of like little cobblers, shoemakers.
Yeah.
We go in to do our stuff, we do our thing, and it's quiet. We do it in a very small area. And people look at that and say, oh, that's the dentist. But the dentist it's one of the top fears in the country that people have is going to the dentist. So you're not really loved. You're finding things that are wrong with people's mouths that usually don't have pain. So you're trying to talk to them about that. You're trying to restore somebody to a function or beauty or whatever they need, but really to keep their teeth going so they can live a long life. And so I think dentists start taking that on. And then the other thing I think that they do is, we get people in our offices and they come in and they work for us and they work well. And I see this with a lot of entrepreneurs in other businesses too, that we will promote out of loyalty but not ability.
Okay.
So the dentist grows their business. Now, the dentist is sitting across from an assistant for maybe 10 or 15 years. The business grows. The dentist goes from one dentist to 2 to 5 to 10, and they may have multi-locations, as a lot of people are seeing right now. But who did they bring up with him? And I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but does somebody know how to run a business at $1 million, 2, 4, 5, and that person that's with them is a dental assistant or a front desk person? Either the dentist didn't train them, they didn't send them for more stuff, but they're expecting them to do something that is, to me, not only way above their pay grade, but we think by paying somebody more that's going to give them more ability to do it.
There it is.
It'd be like taking a college player that's a good college baseball player or a tennis player, played tennis in college, and saying, okay, we're going to pay you $10 million tomorrow to go play in the pros.
It's not going to happen.
They can go, but and what are they going to try to do? They're going to try to do everything to keep that position, to the point of we set people up in our businesses to fail, and also not just to commit, I wouldn't say commit crimes, but we don't get the truth from them anymore. Because what have we done? We've put them so high that they're like,
I feel like they can't be honest with you.
They can't be honest, and they can't.
Yeah.
And see, I see entrepreneurs do that too. I'm not saying don't take care of those that are loyal. Loyalty is massive in my book.
Yeah, but you got to know how to delegate, right?
Right, and you have
take
to know
accountability yourself. As the boss,
and who.
Yeah,
and that may mean, okay, I got to make another investment.
Yeah.
You start making money. I see entrepreneurs do this, or people that start businesses, and then they forget to plow that money back in and make an investment. I'll see it a lot of times that people will say, "Oh, I gave them a raise." I'm like, whoa. Did they earn it or not? You didn't give somebody something. They earned their money. I didn't give them money. They earned their wage. And I see that with people all the time. If you're earning your wage, what does the Bible say? A man is worthy of his wages.
Yes.
And if they're a man and woman, meaning, but if they're doing that, why am I withholding? And you want to. Now, that doesn't mean they just get it. That doesn't mean that there aren't things that we put in our place to say, okay, these are the systems, this is what I need, this is what we do, and they follow it and they perform. But at some point, you can outpay somebody to be able to do a job that they're even not only capable to do, they don't have the skill to do, but they'll protect it. And what does that do to your business? You go backwards.
Yeah.
Did you subscribe yet? If you like our content, it's the easiest way to support the pod. Hit the subscribe button on the bottom right and keep it classy.
So no, that's great. That's an interesting approach to management, right? Is like you think about we think about like rewarding loyalty, and we have a system in place, which, as you said, we need. But it's like at the end of the day, if you're putting someone in a position where they're not, they don't have actual skill set to succeed, what they're probably going to do is not be honest to their employer. They're going to guard that position, and they're quietly going to drag the business down, which is also the manager's fault, the boss's fault.
Yeah.
So it's this kind of becomes this vicious cycle of the whole thing falls apart and you don't really know how it happened. But like, doesn't that kind of go back to like the boss, like the manager, the head of the practice, like taking accountability themselves and saying, hey, like, I need to take accountable for the ultimate responsibility of the success of my business, and not like, it's good to delegate, but it's also, you have to know when to take responsibility into your own hands and not just delegate away and outsource everything to the point where you're giving people jobs they're not prepared to succeed for.
And you hit it, I think 1,000%, that as a leader and the person that is head of the business, our job is really to look at people and relationships to where they're going to do the best and to feed it. Now, it doesn't mean if you have an HR department that you don't let them do it, because that's the other thing that we've created. A business that I have is called discoverplg.com, and you were asking me about the school, and you can go to that to dental-secrets.com and www, and that's a school that I have for dentists that we get on, and we do things and talk about growth and problems in practice, and we have a little introductory free session. We also have a paying session, and I'm really trying to build a community of dentists to get on there to do exactly what we talked about, not worry about being on the ladder, but put our feet on the ground to be known. Good things happen to known people.
Yeah.
And if I'm known and I'm telling the truth, then I all of a sudden, you might say to me, if you're a dentist or an entrepreneur, we do this, I'm looking to do the same thing with entrepreneurs, is put a school out there to say, hey, Steve, what's happening? All of a sudden you say, man, I'm having this trouble with this. And you're like, it might be growing my business, or man, I'm not good at bookkeeping. I'm not either. I need an accountant.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, I thought I was the only one, because we're head of our business, everybody thinks they know everything. Look, man, I'm a dentist. I have a doctorate in teeth. That's it. I didn't go to business school. I got good friends that went to some of the top business schools in the world. And I'm going to tell you, they're brilliant.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need to stay in my lane. And that's what I did with this PLG, discoverplg.com, which is practice leadership and growth. And we're looking at another one, business leadership and growth. But it's about core competency.
Okay.
It's about staying in what you do extremely well.
Specialization.
Completely. And the more specialized I can be and the better I can do with what I do, I can stay in my core competency. And then as entrepreneurs, we get going and we see the need for help. Dental offices the same way. And people say, but if I stay in my core competency, that means if I'm a dentist, I just do teeth. If you're building a podcast or a business to have people on, and you're really not doing it to build a podcast, you're doing it to build a community outside here in San Diego and even abroad so that people can see stuff, which is an amazing thing. And it gives people access to see things that we could never see before because we're connected. But if we don't stay in our core competency and you get outside of that, what does that do to my energy? It zaps it. Yeah. Anytime I stay away from, as Dan Sullivan at Strategic Coach says, your unique ability.
Okay.
If you stay in that, you're gonna have more energy than anything you could do.
You got to stay centered.
You stay centered in it. But have you ever done something that you really love to do and you do it so well and the time flies and it just goes and you're like, I'm not even tired and it may be 1 a.m.
Doesn't even feel like work.
It doesn't feel like work. There's your unique ability. What is it? But it's when we get outside of that, and I'm not saying you can stay in that 100% of the time. I don't think, and Dan Sullivan doesn't say that.
Sometimes you got to learn new stuff,
yeah. But it's like I tell people, my unique ability isn't taking the trash out, in the garden. It's like, but the trash still has to go out, you know? So somebody's got to take that out. Yeah. But there are people that if you find out that really love cleaning that are amazing in organizations, you're like, I didn't even really liked it. Yeah. And you're trying to assign it or so and so. And then you're like, hey, let them do it. Negotiate with them to do something that they don't do well. And that's what we miss in business. But what we set up was this another way so people can focus on their core competency. And it's really DDIY, don't do it yourself. So I've set up a business to bring experts in behind you for initially really anything from acquiring clients, acquiring patients to cost, efficiency, and growth. And how can you do that and put people in behind you at a very, very cost-effective way that's at a high level.
Sure.
So whatever you need behind that, that's what we do. Now I say whatever, to the degree that you can do that, repetitive things, bookkeeping, HR, in a dental office, recall or reactivating patients, marketing. There's different ways to market and do those things.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, we've talked about this on one other podcast before with a gentleman who runs a business that trains doctors, excuse me, with sort of business skills and provides sort of business resources and consulting for doctors trying to start their own practices. But is that also a big need specifically with dentistry in terms of you have dentists who they're very, very capable, qualified to have a practice, but they perhaps lack the business acumen and know-how and knowledge and resources to turn that into success? It seems like that's kind of the need that you're meeting.
Yes, and I will go. It's not just with doctors. Most of us, unless you went to business school, and just because you went to business school, that doesn't mean you're going to own your own business. Mm-hmm. That means you're going to get in and maybe you can manage it. Maybe you can do numbers well. Maybe you do accounting. Maybe you're a CFO. Maybe you're just somebody that knows how to put widgets together better. Engineers. That doesn't mean you're going to own and be at the top. So I don't want to ever disparage somebody that's leading. I don't think it's just the dentist. I think I see that with everybody. But what I do is we go in, and it's not just teaching them to do that. I'm more like, look, go do what you do. Who has the time anymore to spend to where they can go out and, okay, now I want you to be the best leader you can be. I want to teach them. I want to give them, skills and things to follow. But if they're in there doing surgery, take a physician. I want them doing surgery. I want them focusing on how to do surgery better. Yeah. I don't want them worrying about the other stuff. So that's the argument I get into with a lot of consultants, and I consult. But if you need a consultant with you all the time, or I tell people, my job is to come in and work with you and work myself out of a job.
Yes.
Not to leech on.
It's kind of like, sorry, if this is a crude analogy, but it's kind of like the dating apps. Like the point is not to keep the app your whole life. The point should be, right, to have it, to find someone and move on. But if the app is designed to make you like stay on the app all the time and never find anyone, then it's not doing its job. That's a separate topic, obviously, but that's the analogy that came to mind.
I don't think it is. I think it's apropos to our conversation, because what we get into is I find people all the time, oh, I use this consultant, and I use that consultant. I'm like, are you going to use me or use the information I bring you? And I really don't want to bring information. I want you to go do what you do the best, and let me bring people behind you to set up in a very cost-effective manner at a world-class level that you're not going to be able to get.
Yeah.
And at places like, we've got the head of our HR, she was at Barclays, which is a global company. And she was one of the top HR people there. She oversees our whole HR department. I've got other people that that's the class we bring to it, but we can bring it to it at a cost in your organization that a dentist couldn't get it. If you needed it just easily done. And it's a different way, and it's relational. It's not just a subscription where you get on and you get something back written to you. I mean, you might have written stuff, but you can pick up the phone and call her. And it's just, that's the kind of stuff that we want to do. Stay in what you do best and do it better.
Craving authentic Italian flavor? Look no further than Primo Pizza and Pasta. We cater any occasion, whether it's a family gathering, a corporate event, or just a night in with friends. Primo has you covered with the freshest pizza, pasta, and salads in town. And don't forget the homemade meatballs, garlic bread, and fresh baked bread. Perfect for any occasion. And hey, football and baseball fans, this season with the NFL kicking off and October baseball heating up, score big with our new limited time special.
Get 1 dozen wings, a 2-liter soda, and a 16-inch pizza with 1 topping, all for just $39.99.
That's right, a full meal for the whole team at an unbeatable price. So visit us at 7110 Avenida Encinitas, Suite 103 in Carlsbad, or check us out online at primopizzapasta.com. That's primopizzapasta.com. Bring the taste of Italy to your next event. Primo Pizza and Pasta, where every bite is a touchdown. So that's kind of like because I was going to ask you what sort of sets the coaching and consulting that you do apart, but you've kind of already answered it, which is like, you're teaching people. You're there, as you said, not as a full-time like manager, but you're there to teach them to be able to manage it themselves. And then, you go your way, they go their way, but you're teaching them like to stay in their core competency, how to outsource and delegate appropriately, but to stay in that core competency, to excel at that, and then sort of to put things in motion for everyone else around them to succeed in that setup. So I want to ask you too, like, as far as just like your business and kind of what you're doing now, like you've kind of touched on this before, but how does, because obviously, you're a man of faith, which I, respect, and, I have those convictions myself, but it's like not everybody does. And, you're working with lots of different people, but how does your faith like shape your approach to business, but how does it play into these professional relationships that you curate with people that you're giving consulting advice to?
Well, there's 2 principles that I've really come up with. I haven't come up with it. They're not new. There's nothing new under the sun, as the Bible says. But
Ecclesiastes.
But radical accountability and rigorous honesty. And who wouldn't want somebody, let's just take everything and lay it down flat in business. If the Bible says, do unto others as you have them do unto yourself, who wouldn't want that?
Yeah.
I don't have to have that out, but I can have that in my life the way I live it. Who doesn't want when you're basically, your yes is yes and your no is no? Who wouldn't want that in business? I mean, all these are biblical principles.
They're very practical as well.
They're so practical that if you have that, it'd be like, wow, this person does what he says. He gets it done. He's teaching me. I'm not here to, I don't even want to say wear it on my sleeve, but I want to wear it in the person that I am. So it comes out all the time.
Yeah.
That it's not just something I say, oh, and I believe this. If what is it? They'll know we're Christians by our love. They'll know what we do, not just what we say. Because first business principle I teach dentists that go in, I said, look, watch what somebody, and this is business 101, watch what they do, not what they say. You'll see what people do. You'll see how they act. If I keep telling you I'm going to call you, and I've been that person, oh yeah, let's get together.
Yeah.
I didn't get together. I overcommitted all the time because I was afraid to say no. Now if you call me and say, Nate, can you be here? I can't do that. But I'll tell you what, I could probably do that next month, but I'm not sure about that because I'm so busy. I don't know when I'll be back out here. But if you're coming to Nashville, hey, I'd love to see you. Let's make a time. Versus, oh man, let's get together and
with no follow through. Yeah,
there's no follow through, and people do it in business all the time. They trade business cards, or now it's LinkedIn, and you go on there and take your picture, and you're on LinkedIn, and you get it going with technology. But it's just we're not following through. So how much do I really care about you when you come to me? And then the next time, if I'm always saying yes, yes, yes to everybody, I always teach people the first thing you got to learn is to say no to something before you say yes to it.
Wow.
Because we'll make a decision. It may not be the best decision for us.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't have to say no right out, but you can say, you know what, let me get back to you, but I will get back to you. And let me tell you when I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you at this time. And then it's like you've committed to it. Or if you get back to him, you still have the opportunity to say, you know what, I didn't have a chance to think about it, but I'm getting back to you. I'm staying in touch with you. I keep going. I keep going. I keep going. Just stay in touch. Sometimes you don't have any news to bring anybody. And when you don't have any news to bring anybody, it's okay to say, hey, I'm just doing what I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
I don't have any more news. That's the truth.
Yeah.
And we miss that. And it's so easy.
And what you said is like so profound. Like you have to be able to say no to something before you can say yes to it. I feel like that applies to business. Yes, it applies to relationships, right? That applies to life, right? Like you sort of, there's this like mastery of self that has to occur, like the ability to master your desires, master our animalistic instincts, master these things before we can actually, enjoy the fruits of our labor, enjoy life. And I feel like that, you have to be able to say no, right? You have to be able to say, no to this relationship right now, or no to this like seemingly good thing, or no to this thing that seems like surface level, like, a prize. But then later, like once you've put in the work, to be able to say yes to those things in a way that's actually constructive, that's actually healthy, that's actually beneficial. I think that's quite a profound concept, and I've never heard it put that way before.
And if I look at it, and I wish I could say I do still. That's what I still practice.
Yeah.
Everything I'm talking about, I practice. I'm not perfect at it.
Yeah.
It's practice, not perfection. You know what I'm saying? And I'm practicing to go to it, and I'm not going to be perfect in it. But that was my sickness. I always thought I had to be perfect. And every business, we think we have to have the answer just because you own a business. Sometimes it's okay to say, I don't know. I don't know. I never thought about that. Somebody might say, hey, man, you might want to, because that guy you interviewed, he went to prison over that. Wait a minute. I wasn't thinking in that term.
Yeah.
And you call me, or you see where it goes?
Yeah.
And I think that's where, like you said, if we say no, and so many times it might not be no, it just might be, I don't know. I have to get back to you. Well, I have to know now. Well, if you have to know now, it's no. Because I can't do it. I got to stay in my space.
You got to stay in your center, in your core competency.
Because if I don't, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to start giving, and I give, and then I've poured it all out.
Out of an empty cup.
And then what do I have to take to my family? Nothing. What do I have to take to my friends? What do I have to take to my business? Nothing. And I poured it all out, and everything else. Out of what? Out of some feeling that I'm chasing from way back, that I was told I was never enough, or I couldn't do it, or I was made fun of, or whatever it was. And I'm trying to prove that versus like, wait a minute, that happened back there. That's not today. Today, I can take care of today. Take care of business.
Yeah, I love that. Well, as we close, I was thinking of a number of different ways to do this, but I wanted to ask you about like a particular anecdote in your life, which is, I'm sure that there was a particular day on which you were released from prison, of course, and I'm sure there was a lot of emotion that day. I've obviously never experienced it, but I imagine that there's a point where you physically walk out and you're out of there. And, I imagine you had someone to pick you up, whether your wife or your kids, to greet you. And I want to talk about that because I feel like, we started sort of, and I know it's part of your story, but we started sort of some of the quote unquote negative stuff in terms of talking about, kind of what led into one of the hardest trials of your life. But I want to end on that like redemptive note. Like describe that day, like describe what you were feeling the moment you walked out, and how you never looked back. Talk about that.
Man. Well, my wife picked me up. We were in quarantine because it was during COVID. So quarantine, you're 2 weeks out. They put you in, and it was the best they could do with quarantine because nobody knew what was going on.
Yeah, crazy.
But we were out from the general population, and they were letting people out through that. But I'll never forget. I came out, but you're very worried because if nobody's there to pick you up, and something happens, and you go down in your mind, you play all kinds of tricks. It's like, what if she gets in a wreck? What if she doesn't know? What if she oversleeps? Because they've got a day for you to go out of prison. You're leaving prison. And if they're not there, you go back in and they recalculate, redo stuff, and it's very difficult. But my wife was there. And it was, you go through all those things in your mind that play games, but she was there. But I'll never forget, I got out and I got there, and it was just like, wow. And it wasn't, I thought it was over, but the thing that came to my mind, and it still does to this day, that God is faithful. And that's the anecdote, that he's faithful in what I thought was prison was really freedom, because that's where I got me. That I got to come home, but I went through something that I thought was the worst thing in my life that ended up really, for me, for Nate, being something I never could have gotten without going there. And I never could have gotten my relationship with God and my relationship with what he did for me, that I was important to him, because you have you in there. And it's so much what happens in life. I hear people go, and it's like at nighttime they go to sleep and they get scared, or I'm like, this is where it is. You didn't have to go to prison to learn that. If we can learn it now. Now, I learned that because I wanted it, but I didn't know that's how he was going to do it.
Yeah.
And I had to learn acceptance, and then gratitude. And the anecdote in that is gratitude, because I remember looking at my wife's eye and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this day is here. And yet, that's just the beginning of another day. And where does God want me today? What does he want me to do? Who does he want me to talk to? Who can I help? And I have the same, I drive over here, I spoke to a guy that's getting ready to go in. And
wow.
I don't
That's
charge
a hard
for that.
Conversation.
It is. And I'm just like, man, this stinks. But I'm going to tell you, if you'll use it the way it's meant to be used, you can get something that the government can't give you, your wife can't give you, but only God can give you. But I learned that God was faithful, and he was faithful in so many of those things. I remember my pastor wrote me typed each Sunday, and we attend a very large church, but he was so consistent in that. And I'll never forget, he just kept reminding me, Nate, just remember, God is faithful. And God proved that. And that's the anecdote that I have to use. So
I love that. Well, I want to say, like, it's interesting because, I knew a little bit about your story, before this interview,
Sure.
but, it's obvious from talking to you that there's no deflection. There's no like blame pointing. There's no, this person did this that led me to do, like, you take full accountability, but at the same time, like, even better, like there is actual redemption in your story. And you acknowledge it doesn't come solely from you, that it comes from your faith in God. It comes from the people around you that supported you. So and you're not just like talking the talk, though. You're doing things now that reflect that in the way, in your approach to business and your approach to dentistry and to consulting, and that sort of win-win mentality that you have towards business. So it's incredible. It's incredible to see. It's a privilege to know you, Nate.
thank you.
Now, how can people, as we close, like how can people reach you if they're interested in your consulting? How can people look at your paid community or in your free community as well? Like, what's the best way to access these resources?
Yeah, well, I would just go to dental-secrets.com, and that's the school that I have. I've also got www.discoverplg.com, and you can go to that website, and then you can also go, the web address is discover@discoverplg.com. The things that we do out of that are, I think, as transformational as just some of the coaching that happens. Yeah. And, I can do stuff in person, or I can do it online, but most of it is really trying to help businesses transform and grow and scale in a way that they can do it with their cost savings, with acquisition, with efficiency, and with growth. So that's how they can find me on the web. It's easier to do than just saying a phone number, but
sure, fair enough.
That works out. Thank you.
All right.
And I'm on Instagram at Dr. Nate Schott. That's my Instagram, just Dr. Nate Schott. And you can also look up drnateschott.com, but that's my personal stuff.
All right. We'll love to hear it. Well, check them out. If you're thinking about starting a business, or if you're running a business and could use some consulting help, sounds like there's a lot of great resources in those communities, including the free community. And, you're obviously very accessible guys, so I'm sure anybody could benefit from this, dentist or not. Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. Thanks for your honesty, your transparency, for sharing your story. We loved having you. It's a privilege.
Thank you. So much, and have a good one, man.
Right,
thank you so
it.
much, Steve.
All right, guys, that's a wrap. This has been another recorded episode of Stay Classy Podcast with your host, Steve Wire. Thanks so much for tuning in. And as always, you can find all of our content at our website at stayclassypod.com. And thanks to our production sponsor and partner, MaxLux Media. You can find them at maxluxmedia.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Every subscription helps and goes a long way towards ensuring that we can continue to produce content for viewers like yourself. Thanks so much. Stay classy.